We've talked all season about your senior class and what they've done for your program. This is their last run, this sort of postseason. I guess, does that change maybe some of the messaging to them or some of the motivation of like, hey, you got to leave it all out there? Like, how do you approach that as a coach?
Business as usual kind of thing, because, and I've talked about this, you know, it's psychological. We want them to feel their best going into the meet on any given day, that it's all about us, nobody else matters. Anything we can do to help bring out the best in them, their performance for the day, depending on how they're feeling. There's a lot of communication with each of the competitors, and, you know, we can read body language, and, you know, they do open up to us a lot. So, you know, when it comes down to that in warm-ups or the practice day, just seeing if they're performing as usual, you know, seeing if things are looking the same. I think we're at a point with this program right now that it's not as big of a deal as it used to be in the past. Big Ten Championships is just another meet, and we still go out there and do our job, what we do every day. And, you know, we have the potential of doing some great things. Last year was proof of that, and we basically have our same team. So with additional strength and talent and consistency. So they know that, they believe in that, and I think they're excited to get there and just do it and see what plays out.
What can you take away from winning the Big Ten championships last season that can help this year? I know obviously teams are a little different with the West Coast teams.
Well, the adversity last year, if it wasn't coming down to that last beam routine to see what would happen with a cut toe, we're having Gabby stay away from the sharp stairs this year. What can we take away from that is our philosophy and having each other's backs, and nobody else matters. It's all about us. All focus on us. Stay engaged on the person that's on the event. You know, that hasn't changed. It's kind of part of our culture and our coaching philosophy that your staff and your teammates have all the faith in the world in you. We have your back. You know, we're confident you can do it. That kind of thing, and along with what they've done all this season, has helped their confidence. It's helped build their confidence. And, you know, we have 2.5 practices, I'll say. We practice today and tomorrow. They're off Thursday, and then Friday we have a practice day in Ann Arbor. So they'll get to actually train on the podium for 20 minutes on each event. It's all we need. We're not going to hammer and make any huge changes or whatever. We're just cleaning up some of the little things. Those half-tenths are the hardest to clean up, and not making any bigger of a deal of it. Just, this is going to help your consistency. This is going to help you we can't forget about the handstands on bars. We can't forget about stuck landings on every event. Not planting any new seeds that could be a distraction or whatever on competition day.
Curious, in previous years as a program builder, it's been kind of an upward trajectory, right? And this year, being a defending champion, it's about, not to say maintaining, but reaching a similar level. Does that create different problems, different challenges for you as a coach to maintain that level, or how do you approach that as someone who's been a program builder for so long?
It's been a challenge as far as strategy and what lineups to put up on the day of the meet, because they all know that if something doesn't look right or isn't consistent in warm-ups or in the touch before they actually compete, we'll make some lineup changes if we have to. I would say 9 chances out of 10 we have enough faith in that person that we're not trying to win the warm-up. We're not trying to win the touch. That's just getting you used to the equipment and the nerves or whatever it takes, you know, whatever you got going on when you get up there. Once the green flag goes up, you're actually competing. It's a whole other ball game. So I think they're experienced enough to know that. So we're always, what do I say, checking certain boxes or cross-checking with each other, Nicole, Devin, and myself, on the strategy behind how we selected our lineups and how have they been most recently, and do we feel like we have to go as far as to change somebody out or something like that. And being deep on each event, we, you know, kind of pounded our chests at the beginning of the season, everything like, wow, we're so deep, this is a great problem to have. But coming down to it, is your next in line the 995 that could replace a 995, or is it a 98 that's going to replace a 995? You have to take those kind of things into consideration. So on any given day, the scores are one of the uncontrollables that we can do nothing about. We have to be able to justify why to our athletes, and sometimes that's difficult. But the strategy aspect has been new. It's been exciting, but it's been difficult, and yeah, we lose sleep over it.
Anybody else? All right, thank you.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
we start. Most of you guys will be sleeping, so that'll probably make it easier on me on the writing, but that's the only concern I have. You know, it's a little late night, but I guess it's the same for the other team, so it really doesn't matter. Practice today and tomorrow, and then we leave and get down to Cleveland and play Bryant. And Bryant, been very impressed with the film I watched on them, and watched how they played St. John's early in the year. They're big. Their guards are big. They're 6'6", 6'6", 6'8", 6'8", 6'11". Very experienced, older team, fifth and sixth year guys even, and very well coached. You know, my man Martelli he's done good, man. The people, his sons are both good coaches, and this one, he's got a head job. He's 21, 23 games. They're 14-2 in their league. It is hard to determine different leagues, what you play and who you are, but this is a very fast tempo team. At least 80 points a game 20 times this year, so they can score it. They got a couple guys who can really shoot it. I said about size, but the Penzon kid is as good a shooter. He's averaging over 18. He's shooting over 39 from the three. And Timberlake was their tournament MVP. They've got a regular season MVP, newcomer MVP. But Timberlake is kind of like Tanji. I mean, he's a little bigger, 6'6", 225. But he handles the ball. He plays kind of point forward. He can post up. He can play on the perimeter. He is a very good player. And then they've got a couple guys, Evans and Withers. Withers is a phenomenal shooter, and Evans is a problem because he's a 6'8", four-man who really plays like a two-guard, and he can handle it, he can pass it, he can shoot it, and that's where the mismatch and matchup problems come to light. So all in all, I think it is a good team. They average almost 13.5 offensive rebounds a game, which is phenomenal and means they're a pretty tough team, and I think they are. So other than that, it's just getting more practice time on them and getting more film time to watch them, which we've done a lot of. Questions?
Tom, I think their top four scorers are all transfers. Some of them, you know, some higher level guys like St. John's and Memphis. Does that experience change at all? Being they're
well, when they're fourth, fifth, and sixth year guys, it does. You know, I mean, they've played Memphis, Miami, St. John's. Can't remember all the places, and you know, and they're experienced, meaning they're older guys. So they've been through a lot. They are definitely stronger because of that. And I don't know, you know, I mean, I don't know what it means, but it means that they've won a lot of games this year, and they've been very well coached, and they've played very well. So this is a great opportunity for them. And hopefully our guys are looking at it. It's a great opportunity for us.
Wondering about the bigger guards. You kind of mentioned the size factor there, and you guys have had some games against maybe some of the, I'm thinking like maybe UCLA or USC. How do you counter that size factor with your guards and use their strengths to their advantage?
Well, they don't have as much depth in that area, so we hopefully can wear them down a little bit. They like to run, and we like to run, and hopefully that gets you in the open court a little bit more. It's hard to say, you know, who they're playing a lot of the time. So that's the hardest thing to judge on film, you know, that you don't get to see in person. But how do we exploit it? We exploit it by being very solid defensively, and hopefully getting more and more movement offensively, and make them guard too.
Do you think Jeremy Fears is playing his best basketball right now, and do you just kind of reflect on the season he's had?
You know, I think he's playing his best basketball by far, and both on the court and both with the ball and with his voice and with his intelligence. I've seen the last 4 or 5 games. I think he's made some incredible adjustments. He's looking to be a point guard that really gets people involved. He really has a great understanding of the game. And I think part of it is, I said all year, you know, he come off the injury he had and be out for 7, 8 months. It doesn't come back immediately. And even though he kept telling me that he's a 95%, and I kept saying, well, you still can't do some things just physically that I've seen you do in the past, even with quickness. I'm starting to see more and more and more of that. So, yeah, he's doing what a freshman normally does, and he's a freshman, sophomore, but playing-wise, he was out all that time. So he's gotten better as the year's gone on. And I think with, him, Jace, Jaden, and, of course, Trey, they're really playing better together, too, and that's been a plus for us.
Tom, I'm sure he wasn't the only coach that you called after the championships, but Philip Martelli talked about your call with him and kind of the banter with his dad as well about, cheering against his son on the podcast and all that. But it's not an anomaly. You've done that with so many coaches in your career, and I'm curious where that comes from, that stewardship, I guess, of the coaching fraternity.
Judd, Gene, Katie and Heathcote, I looked at what they did, and even Bob and Clem, and the guys that mentored me. When I was asked to be on the board, the Coaches Association board, I called Judd. I said, "Man, they just asked me to be on the board," and he right away said, "What's the problem?" And I said, "Well, there's no problem. I just want to ask your, I'm a young coach, and just trying to learn the ropes. I don't know if I can help other people." And he said, "That's an honor. It's a privilege. And you better damn do it." And on the board then it was a who's who of college basketball coaches. Then it's dropped off over the years. But I felt like guardian of the game is part of the reasons I stayed on it. And I feel for the young coaches getting into it right now. I think it's a lot more difficult to get into than it was back when I did. And so any help I can give them, I just enjoy meeting guys. I enjoy football guys. I enjoy basketball guys. I enjoy the problems. I enjoy the success. I still learn from every one of them, When I talk to a younger guy, it reminds me I got to make sure I do some things that way. When I talk to a football guy, it makes me realize, different sport, same kind of problems you have. You're still trying to get the most out of every player you got. It doesn't matter what sport it is. So I've done it. I've enjoyed it, and I don't know if I've helped anybody, but some people have helped me.
Tom,
Danny, what the hell are you doing here?
yes, just excited to see you. Just came up to see you.
I knew it. Like old times. Go ahead.
If you think back to the beginning of the season, was there an aspect of this team, this group, that you maybe had a lot of concern about that in turn they greatly exceeded that fear, and there was no real reason to worry?
Yeah, I thought we could be a good team. I did not know things like how would Jeremy come off the injury? How would Jace come as a freshman? How would, guys accept new roles? We knew Coop had to be better, and we had good feeling that Jackson would be, keep hoping that, like Cohen Carr. I mean, where's he going to take his game? So there were a lot of question marks. Some of them were answered over in Maui even, when we played over there and lost to Memphis and then rebounded right back and beat Carolina. And I just felt like the team was pretty together and pretty connected ever since the summer. And I thought we did a good job as a staff doing a lot of different things to help connect them. And as I talk to coaches now, or coaches call me about my team, I just talked to Kelvin Sampson the other day, and the first thing he said was, "I love the way your team's connected." Well, how in the hell do you see that on TV? It must be better than even I think, And then as we got into the numbers, we knew sooner or later it would start separating itself, but it became a strength of ours. I think it's helped us with staying fresh. I think it's helped us with injuries. I think it's helped us with a lot of things. And yet it started to separate itself a little bit, which it should. And so I'd say early on, you know, over in Maui, and then maybe those first couple Big Ten games that we had split and lost other years, and we won those, and confidence started coming our way, along with a togetherness. Like, I'm not saying it hasn't happened recently, but it was stronger and better, and people were playing to win instead of for egos, and that was greatly appreciated, and I think we've had success because of it.
Tom, you talk to your guys who won a title 25 years ago, and they'll say it was the year before the 6-point loss to Duke when they truly believed they were capable of something like that. You've talked about the number of teams you thought had a chance throughout the years. How many teams do you think you've actually, themselves actually believed they could do it? And how do you get a team that hasn't really done anything like that to believe they can?
Yeah, especially this day and age, you know, you're lucky that a lot of other teams, like remember when we played North Carolina and Detroit, I'm not sure the all-star team of the Celtics and Lakers would have beat that team, you know, but 4 of those guys came back to win a championship. You know, I mean, Mateen announced, and, you know, when we lost that game in Tampa, that we're coming back to win a championship, you know. Those things aren't as prevalent now because of the movement there is in sports, but I'm still the same. I'm still here. Those former players that talk about it, they're still here. And I think that helps, but I'm going to lean on them. I got a couple coming in today and tomorrow to speak to our guys because, you know, you're right. These guys haven't accomplished anything yet, but I think the way we played the last 7, 8, 9 games, when we had a lot on the line and a lot of pressure on us, and a tough part of our schedule, a tough part of the 2-day preps. I mean, everything. We really rallied together, and so I think they're hungry to accomplish something. But the biggest fear I have with all new guys that haven't been through it is there is a difference between games and playing for championships. There's a difference between playing regular season and playing in one-and-done time. We saw it in our Wisconsin game, a couple mistakes, and all of a sudden you're going home. And, you know, did we learn from that? I mean, some of it all isn't about learning. It just happens. But those are the things we try to preach without being negative about it, and show things that happened other years here or other years to other teams. And I'm hoping some of our former players, you know, that'll call or stop by will explain that to them, you know, because it always comes better from one of their peers than it does their coach, you know. I mean, it just does. And yet I feel like I think I've grown with this team. I said this, we were in Iowa, and we found out we definitely won the Big Ten championship. And the celebration in our small room, in our film room, was players, coaches, and managers. And I didn't see anybody above anybody. I didn't see anybody below anybody. And I think that helped too. We realized we're all in this together. And so I'm hoping all those little things can help propel us. But you still got to defend, rebound, run, make shots, you know, not get in foul trouble like we did against Wisconsin. So many factors in games that some you can control. And that's what I talk to them about. Let's control what we can control. Some you can't control.
You've had teams with, like the Cash's team that went to the Final Four. Did that team believe before it beat Duke that it could? Like, I'm just wondering if you had great teams that you weren't sure believed.
I think sometimes you have too many teams that when you say believe, in other words, are you too cocky? Are you too comfortable? You know, so I'm always looking for the happy medium, but I'm I'm sure, Denzel's team, I mean, I think we thought, they thought. The Gary Harris team, I think we believed we could, and I think to this day, we had a bad half. And that's the things that I bring up now. Probably the team that, one of the teams that surprised, even me was the time I guess that was 15 when we won out in Syracuse, but those guys were hungry to play. They felt like in 14 we could have been there and didn't. And so I don't know, I don't sit there and wonder if they believe. They better believe. We just went through one of the tougher schedules that we've probably ever played in a row, and survived it, and then got beat, making a couple mistakes that I think we could have, should have handled, and if we can use the two, then that's what this week is for. It's to get them to believe. I don't think they go into it. Mateen's case was different. His personality was different. That team was different. Draymond's, when we won, when we went to the finals in 2009, I think there was a hope to get back there in 10, which we got back there. But I don't know. That's a good question. I don't have a good answer for you, so I'm politician in it. I'm beating around the bush. I don't have a good answer. But I think this team feels comfortable that we can be good enough to make a deep run, and yet I think they are smart enough to know that our margin for error is not great, like some of the teams I've had. But most people's margin for error is not as good as you think. I mean, Carolina's that year, that was as good as it gets, There's not a lot of those kind of teams left.
Tom, when you think back to recruiting, Jace, what are a couple things that come to mind? I'm sure that was probably a unique one in some ways for you. And as far as I remember, I don't think it was necessarily a foregone conclusion that just because of his family that he was going to come here.
Oh, no. I mean, the one thing that was the hardest was Jace being his own man, his own player, not going somewhere because he's Jason Richardson's son or Jackie's, son. It was, I think and hope that number one, Jason at least felt comfortable that he knew what he was getting into. Number two, I think, thought of winning a national championship, going to 2 Final Fours. I mean, his son had to be brought up on some of that. But you're right, that was no foregone conclusion in my mind or anybody's mind. And what I like a lot more on having Jace than recruiting Jace is you don't see the integral little parts that make him so special. He's got an unbelievable demeanor about him. Definitely cocky enough to be great and humble enough to be a regular. I mean, my favorite thing with Jace Richardson is to watch every day in practice. He goes by and he says hello to all the managers and he hugs them and does this and does that, and I go, where did that come from? Just different. He's a different kid, and I say that in a very positive way. But I had to learn too. He's not outwardly boisterous. He's not. He's got a calm confidence about him, and he's a very, very efficient kid. I mean, I don't think he does anything that isn't efficient. His passes are efficient. His defense is efficient. His rebounding is efficient. He doesn't waste shots. He doesn't waste a lot of motion. Everything he does is very efficient. And that, Cash has had some of those qualities, but Jace even has more of them. And without being boisterous about it. And, God, you got to love that about the kid.
Tom, talking about Jace, got me thinking about the guys that have led you on long runs. Do you see some characteristics in this team similar to the teams that went on long runs for you? And if so, what are those characteristics?
Well, you know, I had a couple of teams that went on long runs that had incredible leaders that were here 4 years, and sometimes, you know, like in Jaden, he leads by example every day, how he carries himself, what he does in his life, what he does academically, what he does socially, what he does work ethic-wise, but not as boisterous of a leader. And, you know, I thought Jeremy would be that guy, and I think he would have been that guy, but then the injury happened, and so you still have to spend half the year, you know, finding yourself. That's why I thought your question was very good, that Jeremy is coming into that guy, and he has the voice and the cockiness to be a leader. You have to have some cockiness to be a leader, and you have to have a voice. And when your own game, when you're struggling with your own game or struggling to get back, it's hard to lead others. So I see that part of it getting better. I see those guys learning how to play together, being better. And so is it enough? I don't know. But I like the way our kids respond to our coaches, and I like the way they're responding to each other right now. Then you got to have enough talent to do things too. And, you know, and we've made no bones about it. It's not maybe the most talented team we had 1 through 8 or 9, but that connectability and that togetherness is maybe as good as 99% of the teams I've had. And what will that do? We're going to find out.
Just a quick follow-up. You love having seniors this time of year, but as times have changed, a freshman can lead the way in a certain degree these days?
They can. They definitely can. And you know, he's kind of come up through the process, you know, like everybody thinks everything was going to be given to him because he was Jason Richardson's son, and it wasn't. I mean, he went through the process, which I'm sure it sometimes made it harder on people, but I think in the long run, he is so poised to do what he can do, and there's no doubt maybe he can be one of those guys. I think Trey and he and Jeremy together, you know, form a good bond on that as far as one's confident enough, one can lead in a different way, and one of them's a really, really, really good player. So you put all those things together, and maybe it's a little bit more by committee than you'd like. You'd like one voice sometimes. I'm not saying that one voice still couldn't happen, because what has been interesting about Jace is winning has always been really important to him. He's won everywhere he's been. Some other guys haven't won everywhere they've been. He's won everywhere he's been, and I think that makes it where winning is the ultimate goal here.
Tom, you know that 215 is no lock. How often do you bring that up with this team before this? And without ever looking past Bryant, how much work can you get done thinking about Marquette and New Mexico to win the weekend?
Yeah, I don't mind talking about that because I'm a white elephant in the room guy. You know, whenever there's a white elephant in the room, I talk about it. Some people hide behind it. Some people put their head in the sand like an ostrich, you know. I don't. I'll never forget my favorite one was we were at Nebraska when Miles was a freshman, and, you know, our team was decimated by injuries, and, you know, I could tell that week of practice that this was a big game. There's only a couple left. We had to win. So pregame meal. I shut the door. I said, everybody done? Yeah. And I said, all right, there's a big white elephant in the room, and he's ready to pounce on all of you. So we're going to sit here and talk for 15 minutes about you owe me nothing. Don't worry about, you've given me everything you can give me. We've been hurt by some injuries and that. Don't feel the pressure of the former players. They understand where we're at. And I just went through it and talked about, you know, talked up front about it. And we went out and beat the hell out of them. And I think that taught me that you better deal with issues, not hide behind them. I've tried to do that most of my career here. So do I bring up the 215 game? Hell yes. First night, first thing I talked about. I said, the advantage you have with your coach He's done it all. He's gone to a Final Four as a 7 seed, which isn't normal, and he's been beaten in a 15-2 game. So I've lost in the first weekend as a 1 seed, and I learned from it, and I try to tell him that. So you're going to have to trust me in what I'm telling you, because you aren't going to be able to go through it. And if you do go through it, it's because you hung up your shoes. We're done. And I think that's been pretty good. I think our team understands it. I mean, I don't sit there and worry about it every day. I know what can happen. In that game against Middleton, in that game, we were the best defense team in the country. They shot 56, 53 or something from the 3. We shot in the 50s and lost. And that wouldn't happen to Michigan State 1 out of 100 times, but it did. And give them credit. They beat us. And so I tell them, nothing's given, everything's earned, and we've got to overcome things like a hot shooting team. You still got to find a way to win. A bad officiated game. You still got to find a way to win. Somebody in foul trouble. Somebody could get injured. So I try to talk about all that the very first night, and that way, do I harp on it every day? It depends. If we have a bad spot in practice, I say, okay, you want to be the next team? I said, I got a good friend of mine that was part of the 116 loss. I said, and a year or two later, he won the national championship. So hopefully, I'm sure he learned. Hopefully I've learned. Hopefully I can get it across to you, because that's the gift I can give you.
What about being able to look ahead to the second game of the weekend to win it without slacking off?
Yeah, well, Mike Krzyzewski taught me a good lesson. After the first couple years, I was in the NCAA Tournament, and it was called Win the Weekend. And I heard him say it somewhere, and I said, wow, and then it started making sense. When you're a young coach and you're trying to keep your job, which everybody is today, by the way, everybody's trying to keep their job, but except me, they don't want me, it's time, but I'm comfortable that what Mike said was your program gets to a certain point, winning a game does not help you keep your job. It does not. You want to win the weekend because that helps you advance to the ultimate goal. Now, everybody knows you got to win the first game to win the weekend, but you don't get much time to prepare for the second game. And unlike the Big Ten tournament, when you only get 1 day, but you've already played those teams and you have a better idea on those teams, this is different. So, we'll prepare yesterday and today a little bit for Marquette, a little bit for New Mexico on things they do that we can use here that maybe all the teams do. And once again, I tell my players, hey, listen, if we throw in a press or a zone and maybe Bryant doesn't, that's where you are. You picked it, and that's what we do here. So we're not looking ahead. I've already been beaten by a 215. We are doing what we need to do at Michigan State to accomplish what we want to accomplish at Michigan State. So Mike gets I don't know, maybe I did too much of that in the 215 game a few years ago, so he either gets some credit or blame, but that's the way we do it here. We will prepare somewhat for all 3 games the first 2 days, and not in personnel or anything, just in maybe zones, presses, what they could do. If they're a really good rebounding team, we might put a little more emphasis on that. If whatever it is, good fast break team, we might do a few extra drills on transition defense because that's what New Mexico does or something. But don't read into it. Don't think I'm overlooking anybody. And if you do, then you don't know what I've done for 25 years.
Just kind of a follow on a couple different areas here. One, the togetherness aspect. There was a point in Iowa where Jace and Cohen were kind of in the middle of one play, just kind of not necessarily butting heads, but communicating what went wrong in demonstrative fashion. But how much does that togetherness help that? And the second part of it kind of also goes with that. Your role is both an educator, just everything that you've talked about today, is both the educator of the athletes, but also still being a student of the game yourself. Just how you kind of balance that at this time of year.
Well, I'm always a student of the game. I'm a student of sports. That's why I spent hours after the loss to Wisconsin talking to my buddy Mariucci. Just, what is it like, what did you go through? What is it like in pro ball? I was learning, but as far as a squabble, do you like your boss every day? In fact, you like your wife every day.
Not a squabble. I meant just that they're able to, because they're together,
Oh,
they're able to
yeah.
communicate that way and not.
Yeah, because those two are tighter than thieves. But, yeah, I agree with you that there should be a time when somebody should be able to post somebody else up. I was posted up in a huddle by Trey Holloman one time, and he had a good point in what he brought up, and I used that. And I won't get into it because that was a huddle. That was the sanctuary of where we are. But everybody goes through those times, and if you respect the people you're playing with, you love the people you're playing with, you should be able to argue or communicate or, like everybody takes it different. If people see two people arguing, everybody thinks they hate each other. My God, Draymond and I would have never made it through a day. It's just the way it is. But if people are passionate about what they want to accomplish and they're trying to hold everybody accountable, that stuff happens. And I think that the connectiveness of our team has helped that. I think, you see it all the time in football or in basketball. It's just the way it is. People have to hold people accountable, and if one thought somebody else was doing something wrong, he should feel comfortable enough to tell them. Sometimes, back to the white elephant in the room, they don't want to deal with the white elephant in the room, and I don't think successful teams handle it that way.
Coach, this is obviously a team game, and your motto is strength in numbers, but every year you see hidden gems, individually speaking, in this tournament. And with your team being full of, under the radar guys, is that something you think about or maybe excites you that any one of them can go off in this thing?
I do think any one of them go off, and I think more of them are playing better in his last 8 games, and that's exciting for me. And I said it early, sometimes maybe I don't know exactly who I'm going to, or people don't think I know who I'm going to, but I know the other coach doesn't because of the way our team has been kind of put together, and so because of that, we're not an easy scout either. But we're looking at some teams now that we're going to play, and these are the 2 players that score the most. These are the 2 players that do this and that. We're starting to separate ourselves, but at the same time, we've had 8 different leading scorers. 9? 9. Who the hell's coaching that team? You shouldn't have 9 different leading scorers, but we did, and so that makes it unique in itself. And we've had, most of the time we really hurt teams on points off the bench, and I think that's been a strength of ours. So I don't know. We have. I think we have enough players now that are starting to find their niche, and I'm starting to find their niche, and we kind of know who we can go to and who we can't, and we've changed the minutes played a little bit more and more, and yet we still have strength in numbers because if somebody isn't playing quite as much and something happens foul-wise, something happens injury-wise, we think we're in a position where we can survive that, and that's a big key in the NCAA tournament because you never know how these games are called. We did get in trouble in the Wisconsin game, with Jackson and Jace in foul trouble, and did that make a difference? I don't know, but I want to be as well equipped for that as we can. So, in general, that's it. I see Jonathan came in, so. Coach D and I used to always talk about, Jonathan, that there's no better time of year than the end of basketball season, because now it's your turn to take all the heat. So I'm excited for you. I'm really looking forward to the spring for you, and I know you'll be following us here in our next couple weeks, hopefully. But it was good to see everybody, and I'll see you in Cleveland.
Another Big Ten championship for Coach Izzo. This basketball team has been so fun to watch throughout the year, and obviously best of luck here in his 27th consecutive NCAA tournament starting Friday. But he's not alone. I mean, we got a lot of good things going too. Women's basketball, best of luck. Another back-to-back years making the tournament. Be cheering them on. Hockey again. Go for a tournament championship Saturday night. Try to get out to that one for sure. And Adam's done a phenomenal job with that team. That team's been fun to mind. Gymnastics is going this weekend, Big Ten tournament. We wish them kind of the best of luck as well. But on our end, it is excited to get started. We did practice one this morning. A lot of work goes into that. These guys in the weight room, all of that, January, February, half of March. And so it was great to get back out there with them. I actually told the team at the end of practice that so many guys, body changes, faster explosions. You could see it, you could just feel it out at practice. Again, Coach Mack and his staff have done a great job getting us ready for this part. And it's always an exciting, just time first look at 27 new guys. And it's not just all about the first look at those guys and the opportunity to see these guys that have been in the program now a year. Some of them have played college football for 2-3 years across the board on our roster. See the development and excited about working with them for 15 practices. On that, kind of through the preparation of practices and the thoughts going into it, want to take advantage of really all 15 practices. I think I might get asked about it today. We're going to kind of finish spring ball without a spring game. And there were some considerations with that. Some of it, you only get 15 of these. Some of the logic is a little bit of, when you do those, you prepare for those back half of the spring. We think the best for this current unit is to take advantage of all 15 practices, not leading into or prepping like you're going into a game. There's some logistics going on in the stadium, which we're excited about, in regards to scoreboards, some things to the press box, and so that can create some challenges. And then, you're always working with numbers, availability, what's best for the team. We're definitely going to do a couple scrimmages amongst ourselves throughout the 15 days. We're spreading those out a little bit, but we're excited to get started. Just back on this film, even after today. Today and Thursday's practice with just helmets and spiders, and then we'll get into full pads on Saturday. Hoping I got some questions that I can answer.
I'm sorry, Todd, just to be clear, there would be no sort of public type
Correct.
of deal. Okay.
Yep. And again, just a lot of the thought leading into that was the way we want to take advantage of the 15 practices.
And then you kind of touched on the other programs. You feel like you guys have kind of been flying under the radar here. I mean, obviously, big football school, but you know, their other sports are doing really well,
Yeah.
and you guys are.
Yeah, I think it's great that so many of our sports are doing so well. It's been fun to be able to get to a lot of their games and things, and so you know, our season is in the fall, and so we definitely want to have some excitement come September.
I'm wondering, I know that spring football, not having the public viewing has become an issue across the country right now. How much does that play a factor in terms of maybe what the portal is and how the poaching has been going on with it?
I think it's a consideration. It was not the number one reason why we decided not to do it, but it's a consideration. Let's face it, this day and age, where the opportunity for players across the country to make decisions come the back half of April, it was a part of the conversation.
Jonathan, I'm wondering, when last year, obviously, you guys hit the ground running, and nobody really had, well, maybe I guess 2 or 3 guys had experience in your system. Now you've got a certain chunk of your roster that knows the scheme. Of course, other guys are learning. How different does that make this spring when everybody's not starting from scratch for the most part, scheme-wise?
It's quite a bit different. A couple coaches were talking about it. I mean, you just go out there. We got a lot of guys back that have been around for the year. Even just the continuity of the coaching staff, are really pleased with the majority of those guys back. Schematics haven't dramatically changed, right? The base of the system on offense, defense, special teams, we're a second year. So that feels like it continues to propel us. We're a lot further along than we were, call it 12 months ago.
Also wondering where you feel like roster-wise, where you guys have improved from Team 1 to your second year.
Well, we start with what we felt like were needs coming from the additions. 27 new guys started in January, offensive line up front. We wanted to create more competition in that room. We got that done. In the secondary, we added to that position where you're playing so many DBs this day and age. So many times you're out there with 5 guys. We needed to create more competition in that room. The receiver position was a priority, and 6 new guys there. And so we're excited to watch that kind of play out over spring camp here, those positions in particular.
Jonathan, at Pro Day, Tanner Miller, I think the word he used was, he talked about how if Aiden gets the protection he deserved, he could do some really special things this year. And I'm curious how much that was an emphasis going into this, spring camp, the 15 practices. How much is offensive line play vital in this stretch of the season?
Yeah, every position is vital. O-line's vital, their play. I will say in regards to protection, that's 11-man football. And so, yes, it starts up front, those guys giving Aiden some space and time. But at the same time, the ball needs to come out on time. And so that goes into detail, route running, getting to separation, all that. So it's a group effort. But it's something we're emphasizing this spring in regards to sack avoidance and being better protected of the quarterback.
Over signing day, you mentioned the not knowing about the NCAA's rule for 105 limit. Have you heard anything about that? And if so, how are you going to tackle the challenges of potentially only 105 players on the roster?
Yeah, we're making, call it tentative plans, because right now our understanding is that's where it's headed into August. Currently, we don't have that restriction, we'll call it in spring ball, but we're aware of it. And so as you're building your roster, you think about even depth per position and how many, and even goes into how you're going to practice. And so, because that's a difference. I think we had 118 on the roster this last season, and so that's a different number when you're down to 105. But those decisions on exactly how many per spot and who it is actually will be made in August.
Jonathan, you've been head coach of a lot of teams, offensive coordinator of a lot of teams. Is this the most new wide receivers you've had to incorporate in winter conditioning and going to spring? And is that a challenge?
Yeah, that's a good question. Off the top of my head, thinking back here, I can't remember this many, especially in January, right? Like when I was coaching 10 years ago, majority of your new guys were coming in the summer. And so this is probably the most I've been around, and knowing that, we did put some thought into January, February, getting around these guys to get them a taste of the playbook and the system and all of that, and did some lead up to spring ball, or starting today, the last week of doing some walkthroughs and things so they could hit the ground running. Without watching the tape from practice today, I actually thought it was pretty clean. I mean, everybody's getting reps. Thinking about the passing game in regards to those wideouts, call the tight end with them. You know, it wasn't a lot of busts. They're going in the right spots. Now, some of the stuff's getting challenged defensively, but for the first day, they digested quite a bit. So looking at our install and how much we're putting in early on, it was not a light load. We challenged these guys on the middle side, and receivers handled it pretty well.
You had some important leaders who are graduating in Jordan Turner, Kyle Halliday on defense especially. I'm curious if you've seen anyone take some steps toward being a leader on the defensive side of the ball in winter and this spring ball.
Yeah, I think on the defensive side, you know, Quindarius Dunnigan had a great offseason. He's got a ton of influence. I think Rukan, the way Rowe has operated these last few months turns into that. I think Jordan Hall for sure. Wayne Matthews has stepped up in a big way. Malik Spencer. We've got some guys on that side that we're going to count on the leadership side.
Yeah, a lot of the guys you got in the portal this past offseason came from G5, maybe even some FCS, and I think Bullard from D2. Is that kind of like the archetype you kind of look for, you know, some lower school guys that, you know, have gotten some big production numbers?
Production was like the priority as we looked. We did. When we went in, knew on the areas or the positions we wanted to target, we wanted to have, you know, production, proven tape, snaps, starts, done it. And because you call it whatever level, there's still guys doing it against 20, 21-year-olds, and so that was a priority for majority of the guys that we took in the portal.
Mentioning the portal, running back Elijah Toliver, probably someone you watched a lot of film of. I know it's just one practice and one winter, but what are some early impressions with him, a guy that's, I imagine, is going to get the ball that fans haven't seen yet?
Yeah, he's got a skill set. Just watching him today, had a nice couple runs. You could see some of his vision that we had seen on tape. Works really hard in the weight room. I think he's picking up pretty well. I'll be curious to kind of see him go when we get some shoulder pads on.
And Tullis and Frazier, what did they benefit from last year, and how are they looking?
Yeah, fast forward the year, I mean, a lot. Those guys did. They got a bunch of practice time, got a few carries in the game. Those guys contribute on special teams. So we're counting on those two to really make it competitive. We do got two youngsters in there that we're excited about with Zion, Jace. And so that room is open in regards to earning carries and playing time.
One more, Luka Vincic, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly or not. Had some time last year at Oregon State. You knew him before. What does he bring? How do you see him fitting in?
We just knowing him, we do think he brings a ton just to the O-line room in regards to his mindset, his work ethic, his voice. He's familiar with the scheme, so it hadn't been a problem for him picking that back up. We kind of feel like he's got a little position flexibility, whether it's inside or outside, and so we're really glad he's here.
Curious, you and your staff are very detail-oriented in the way you approach things and coach, and I'm curious in the spring if maybe you take out a wider paintbrush and sort of get into more macroscopic type of concepts.
I'm not totally sure. Macro, or you say micro? I think I'll say just some big picture items we discussed as a staff. We're truly trying to raise the floor of this roster in regards to our goals for spring football. And so what's that mean? It means guys that maybe haven't played or younger, or maybe they're second, third last year on the depth chart. We got to raise the floor of those guys, get more guys that we feel like can contribute. We can trust them, add in depth, special teams, those kind of things. And then on the flip side of that, you think about the guys that, call them, they've been returning starters, maybe their third, fourth year in the college football. Like, it's tougher for those guys to make the same type of steps and improvement. So challenging our coaches to be able to, raise the floor of this roster, but also get our guys that are returning starters, top-end players to continue and improve.
Jonathan, curious about Connor Moore. Played tackle, obviously, at his last place. Is that where you guys see him, or do you want to get a look at him other places as well?
We do see him at tackle. He probably could play some, but right now, especially with, we've got some tackles with Lepo not going through spring ball. He'll get majority of his time. Connor will at tackle.
I guess that kind of leads me into how healthy are you guys? Is there anybody, I guess?
We feel solid. We definitely got some guys that will not participate. I might give you just a few of them here. and no one's like season ending, but we're being kind of smart. Lepo being one. Dooley, Christian Phillips, we will see on that end. Parachek, feel awesome that he'll be back rolling in June, but you won't see much of him. Wayne Matthews, same way. Those are kind of the keynote guys that won't be going in the spring.
I'm wondering about when you got a chance in the off season to maybe go back through the film, what were maybe the things that might have been a little ahead of schedule in terms of, particularly on the offensive side, because you mentioned about the need for production. What maybe were some of the things that were ahead of schedule, and what were some of the things that you felt like we really need to catch up quickly?
Well, yeah, catch up quickly. We got to score. All right, so how are you going to get that done? We started with the protection, the run game inefficiencies. We had a couple games of good production, but we had too many negative plays on that side, and so that's a bad combination when you're, the passing game protection thrown in with a run game inefficiency. We got to get better there, which will help us. And throw in the turnover side of it, and so that all compounds when inability to be effective running the ball turns into longer down and distances, turn into throwing situations where you see more. Pass pro issues, he turns into turnovers. So all of that combined, we want to do it better. Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't totally jump out. I do think the scheme and the operation of it's not the simplest, right? So, we ask a lot at the line of scrimmage, communication, some of that mechanics, was something that you're pleased with. We want to find some more consistency, whether it's down in, down out, game in and game out, this next year.
Dylan Tatum is a guy that kind of emerged as a potential leader early last year, had the early injury. Now he's a redshirt junior, gets that year back, has 2 more years ahead of him. Is he a safety? Is he a nickel? Where do you see him fitting in? And how is his health? Is he going to be on the field this spring?
Some of both, safety and nickel. He's been out there, practiced well today. He's long, time coming back, and so we're. For him, because he's got some experience, has some position flexibility, like I mentioned with the safety nickel thing, he's going to get plenty of opportunities this spring to fly around. I do, and I think on the special teams end, you throw in the defense, special teams, experience, has some influence, leadership, benefit.
One of the more overlooked losses from last year's team would be Jonathan Kim graduating. Have you had any chance to look at the kicker competition?
Yep.
And how is it looking right now?
Yep. Tariq and Martin will kind of battle that out and probably go all the way through fall camp. We did have plenty of times last year where we felt good about really both those guys. Obviously, Jonathan was having the lights out year and things, and so we feel confident those two will push each other to really be solid at that position, whether we're talking field goal, PATs, or kickoff.
Coach, I'm wondering, especially with how long you've been with Aiden, if there were any sit-downs this offseason, just kind of evaluating last year and talking about his growth going into this year.
Yeah, we conversated a couple of times. Obviously, we made some additions in regards to the coaching staff with John Boyer coming on as quarterback coach, who's Aiden is familiar with. We felt like that was a way for him to have a familiar voice in regards to his development. He's motivated, Aiden, I'll say that. He understands that his game individually needs to take a step. He's anxious to do it, along with the 10 other guys on his side of the ball.
One more thing. What did you guys feel like you got done today in practice, and what do you do for the rest of this week? What's on the agenda?
Today, heavy amount on the individual fundamental side of it, right? The movements, every technique we're asking these guys, all the way starting from our stance up. We did do some team and 7-on-7, so install some base downs, first, second down kind of schematics, the starting point. Worked on some special teams with punt. Thursday will be very similar in regards because we were only in helmets and spiders. We'll get into continue to add to the package come Saturday. We're going to emphasize through the 15, all 4 phases. Heavy emphasis, though, on the coverage units of punt and kickoff, like I say. And then really a lot of the scenarios that come up, whether we're talking red zone, we'll get into third down, 2-minute. We'll do not just on the 2 scrimmages. We're going to do some live tackling outside of those, controlled. So we got to be able to tackle better. I think defensively we want to make emphasis as affecting the quarterback. Got to get better on third down, and so that's emphasis throughout the big picture of the spring. Kind of spoke to the offensive side.
One of the
Yeah.
With tight ends, you mentioned Pearcheck's going to be out. Masunas, will he be back now? How important is the spring for him? What do you see with that position? Wyatt Hook, is he still?
Yep. Wyatt, both Mike and Wyatt went today. Both of them had catches today, now that I'm thinking about it. And so, yeah, those guys are healthy and getting turns. It was a blow when Mike went down last year in regards to our depth and all of that. So we feel Mike throwing Pearcheck healthy, obviously Velling healthy and going. And then, yeah, Wyatt coming along and some of those other guys to add to that room. Okay, guys.